Today I'm pleased to welcome Shane Jacobson, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the V Foundation, an organization with a simple mission: to fund game-changing research and all-star scientists to accelerate victory over cancer and save lives. Prior to joining the V Foundation in 2021, Shane led the University of Vermont's foundation as president and CEO. Shane, welcome to Here for Good.
Thank you, Dennis. It's an honor to join you.
About 30 years ago, the V Foundation was founded by the great Jim Valvano, with the support, obviously, of ESPN. I know many of us remember that empowering speech Jim gave at the ESPYs when he first announced the foundation. What inspires you, or what inspired you to join the V Foundation?
Yeah, thank you for starting there. Our point of origin, 1993, the year Jim gave that famous "Don't give up, don't ever give up" speech. For me personally, on a personal level, like many, I'm sure, of your family, colleagues, friends, those watching and listening to this, cancer has impacted our life and my life in significant ways. We have stories of survivorship. We also have stories of loss. And in my career, I've had the chance to work with some amazing donors and leaders funding cutting-edge research, in particular in the healthcare space and in the cancer space. And so when the opportunity presented itself to dive in vertically in a space like cancer that's had such an impact on my life, I wanted to truly explore it through all different lenses. And as a sports person myself, no longer really much of an athlete outside of getting out to run a few laps around the block here and there, as well as a few laps around a golf course, I see the power in sports and the connection to those that we engage in being able to harness the awareness and the storytelling and the fundraising that goes with those audiences.
That's a great point. You know, a lot of people remember Jim, but they don't talk so much about what kind of coach he was, but really the person, the leader. You know, what is it like to know the work that you do each and every day contributes to the legacy of Jim and the foundation? I guess I'm interested in, what do you and your team do to keep his spirit and the legacy alive?
It's a great question. Jim, we feel Jim with us each and every day. As I've shared with the Valvano family, our board, our staff, it's a privilege of a lifetime for us to uplift and sustain Jim's vision. And I would suggest, as wonderful as a coach as he was, a national championship winning coach in 1983 for the NC State Wolfpack, now celebrating their 40th anniversary of that championship this
I remember that game like it was yesterday.
Down in Albuquerque, beating Phi Slamma Jim in Houston in the national championship game.
I was in Houston at the time, so yeah,
oh,
that has I still feel the sting of that. But go ahead.
Well, it's like the good and the bad. There's those that sting from it and those that still celebrate it, right?
Exactly.
But to know as great of a coach as he was, and to hear from his players and the fans that cheered for him, who really responded to his energy, his excitement, his passion, vision for the program, as even he said, his legacy lives on, and now the greatest impact he is having is both over the 30 years of the V Foundation. We've raised $310 million to support cancer research coast to coast, as well as the impact he's going to have tomorrow because of the work of the V and his story. And it's the work we do tomorrow that's delivering more cures, trying to save more lives, that truly matters most in what we do. And to your question, we've worked a lot since my arrival here, Dennis, 2.5 years ago, asking that question: what is the spirit of Jim, and how is that relevant today, and how can we engage more in diverse audiences in what we do? There are a lot of fans that remember 1983, but there's a lot of people impacted by cancer that care an awful lot about curing cancer that might not be a sports fan or might not have watched that game. And so we've worked with the leadership team here at the V Foundation to develop a set of core values that embody Jim Valvano. And the team is an amazing team. As we've thought about Jim's legacy and what we do next, those core values are optimism, nimbleness, excellence, transparency, accountability, empathy, and mission. You mentioned our mission earlier, and that one team concept really embodies all that we do, and we think it reflects Jim each and every day.
Yeah, at Virtua, we like to say we're here for good. And, very much like what you just stated, it's part of the fabric of our culture. It's a promise that we will be there for our community when and where and how they need us. And you just mentioned at the V Foundation, you have the don't give up, don't ever give up. How has that message influenced you as a leader and the other people that work at the foundation? I get how it's part of your guiding principles and it's the outward thing that the V Foundation sort of stands for, but how does that impact you as a leader?
Yeah, don't give up really is a spirit. It's a mindset. And I think I speak for our leadership team. I think I'm sure with your team, you see it. There are challenges on the horizon. No, some days are great, some days are challenging. At the end of the day, it's all for us mission centric and trying to cure cancer. And cancer itself, I'm not saying anything anyone doesn't already know. It's an awful, awful disease. And that in and of itself is a challenge and a headwind for us. And for the V Foundation, that don't give up, don't ever give up mentality, I think drives both us as a staff to every single day think about how can we generate more awareness in cancer research, shine a spotlight on the research, the talented researchers we're funding across the country. When we hear no, we don't want to support the V Foundation, don't give up. Continue to build relationships, continue to cultivate. And we've been able to elevate support for the V Foundation here over my first 2.5 years. And most importantly, fund more cancer research. But that don't give up spirit, Dennis, I think is embodied. We see it every single day in the researchers themselves. We're privileged to have a relationship with researchers in cancer centers and institutes across the country. And to see it, to smell it, to taste it, to breathe it through the lens of what they do in their labs every day, that spirit is embodied within the entire research community. I couldn't be more excited and proud for who those people are and their dedication to the craft that is curing cancer. I think they embody that spirit as well.
Yeah, and you talk about funding research. So at the V Foundation, 100% of direct donations go to cancer research and programs, as you mentioned. I mean, I think it's phenomenal that over the past 30 years, you guys have awarded over $300 million to focus on just that. And you mentioned a little bit about why you think it's important to focus on the research efforts. I think you have to get away from trying to boil the ocean and really think about a focus. I know there's a connection between what Jim, ultimately succumbed to. Tell me just a little more about why the foundation feels it is so important to just focus on research.
I'll take you back to 1993 in the early years of the V Foundation. So the idea was that more money was needed for research. Jim made that statement in his ESPY speech. And after his passing, the early board members here at the V Foundation had to figure out, what did that mean? They engaged the scientific community at that point in time, trying to figure out where the V Foundation could add value. And often the answer was investing in the pipeline, investing in new ideas, investing in young investigators. And so the quick context behind that then is nationally, the funding stream for cancer research in this country, predominantly driven by the National Cancer Institute, which distributes a lot of resources to cancer research. They'll often fund more known commodities and proven concepts, but those researchers have to start somewhere to develop the proof of concepts. And so our DNA in many respects is birthed out of this concept of investing in the young investigators, the talent in the pipeline, who are coming out of established labs. They're ready to take that research into a slightly adjacent swim lane to ideate, to imagine, to challenge conventional knowledge and develop new ideas. And it's those new ideas we know that are fundamentally needed to advance the field of cancer research.
Yeah, which sort of brings me to my next question. Just a thought. Over the past few years, colorectal cancer has affected young adults at a much higher rate than any of us would like. And I know that at the V Foundation, there's a couple of research initiatives underway to better understand why this is happening. Do you have anything that you can share about some of these studies looking at colorectal cancer in younger adults?
Yeah, we do. Two that I can call attention to now, and we know that colorectal cancer is the second most common cause of cancer-related death in the United States. We're funding research at Vanderbilt. Dr. Mariana Bandelos. She's focusing on these younger age groups through the lens of obesity. And unfortunately, we also see a connection between obesity and cancer, but we're doing something about it. She won a competitive grant at the V Foundation, selected by our scientific advisory committee. So it's a best of the best idea nationally as it relates to colorectal cancer. She's focusing on young adults with the idea that the eating habits, which often are not so healthy for those who are obese, are in fact connected to bad fats being consumed. And so the research itself is looking at those bad fats, so to speak, and how they affect healthy cells in the body and in fact are impacting the mitochondria, which is like the powerhouse of the cell, the healthy cell, so to speak, right? And so better understanding how those bad fats are impacting and adjusting the cells, the DNA mutations lead to cancer. How are those bad fats mutating cells, and what can we do to address that proactively? The outcomes of that research, of course, will help us identify new potential treatments in patients suffering from colorectal cancer. A second investment we've made is in Dr. Charles Rogers, who's at the University of Wisconsin, at the Medical College of Wisconsin, also looking at colorectal cancer through the lens of preventative actions and activities, and looking at those adults under the age of 50. Over the age of 50, we're actually seeing steadily increased improvements in survivorship in colorectal cancer, but not so much with younger audiences, especially those with some later stage diagnosis. So Dr. Rogers is trying to identify, why is it that we're not getting to the access, the treatment centers, the testing that could in fact save more lives. So he's doing a robust research project determining what are those barriers, delays in medical care, challenges with the healthcare system, lack of information within many communities, and the stories of survivorship when accessing care, in fact, can motivate others. So our research itself is multidimensional, and those would be two examples addressing this really important need.
You know, Shane, cancer it's heavy, right? I mean, we understand sometimes just hearing the words can elicit a whirlwind of emotions. You know, however, on the flip side, you know, a word that is often associated with cancer is hope. You know, it empowers people, it makes them want to do something. You know, you just said cancer has changed tremendously over the past 30 years, and in many cases, there's been positive advancements. You know, is there anything that excites you about the future of research, and is there anything that I guess fills you with hope? You did a great job of explaining, you know, two of the cancer projects that are ongoing that's being funded by the foundation, but is there anything that truly excites you about the future?
Yeah, I'm going to answer that question, Dennis, by first looking back and then looking forward. Jim Valvano was originally diagnosed, when he heard his cancer diagnosis, with what they thought was bone metastasis, and later identified as adenocarcinoma, which is a cancer that affects the lining of many of the organs in the body. Those organs create various kinds of fluids for the body, like mucus or digestive system juices. At that time, MRI was just becoming part of the standard of care. PET scans didn't even exist.
Yeah.
Now part of the standard of care treatment in cancer in many, many respects. And so, but for investments in research by those that wanted to lean in to help, by the talented leaders in cancer, leaders in healthcare, and those researchers back then in the 80s and the 90s, we wouldn't have PET scans and MRI, but we now do. Who knows what that might have meant for Jim? His prognosis theoretically could have been better. We've invested in research competitively nationally in adenocarcinoma. And so, for example, we have funded research that's resulted in 435 publications on adenocarcinoma that have been cited more than 62,000 times by other researchers nationally and internationally advancing this field. We feel like we've helped advance an entire field that delivers cures and saves lives. That's why research, I look backwards first to say, look what happens when we do lean in and work to make a difference. Name of your podcast, when we try to do good. Yeah. And now looking forward, there's so much on the horizon to be excited about. For example, immunotherapy, which has been around for a while, but accelerating at great rates, harnessing the body's own immune system to find cancer, which is really good at hiding, and then using the body's own immune system to fight and cure cancer at a very local level without some of the toxicity and other harms to the body, which might be alternative. Artificial intelligence is here and on the horizon, helping us make quicker diagnosis, better diagnosis, and doing predictive modeling that can help with the early treatment options that are on the horizon. There's so much excitement around what the next decade will hold, and it's exciting to be able to tell this story through the lens of the V.
So with that being said, is it challenging to find new ways to engage or activate our community to support the foundation? Or maybe tell us a little bit about your board. I mean, you have an all-star lineup, from athletes, business folks, philanthropists, people that truly care. Tell me a little bit about the makeup of the V Foundation's board and some of those folks that are helping to drive this research, as well as your thoughts about how we can activate others to support things like the foundation.
Yeah, the board of directors of the V Foundation is incredible. These are very accomplished individuals that can do many things with their time, and they choose to give their time and their advice and their support to us. It's an incredible group. In fact, the original 5 founding board members from 1993 are still on the V Foundation board, including Dr. Jim Moore, who was Jim Valvano's oncologist at Duke University. This board, which includes the likes of, which many of your listeners might know, Mike Krzyzewski at Duke, who was originally on the board with Jim at the ESPY speech, Buster Posey, Major League Baseball World Series winner. We've just added Russell Wilson and Sierra Wilson to our board, and the list goes on and on. Leaders in business and industry who have accomplished a tremendous amount in their careers. The entire ecosystem of our board is quite robust, and it actually addresses part of the challenge question too, which is how do we bring awareness to the challenges in cancer research, the opportunities in cancer research, and how this organization is moving the needle. This board itself brings awareness because of who they are and their accomplishments, and they can bring some of their network to the table as well. They are also very active in our. They're not just in name only. They are very active in our fundraising.
So they bring more to the table than just their names.
There
is a demonstrated commitment to furthering the cause of the foundation.
That's right. The board has a framework, which is they have to work. They have to work. It is a working board. So at our events, in their communities, traveling for us, engaging in podcasts, stories, all the rest, they they have to work. They give personally to the V Foundation, and they invite many others through the door. But you're right. The challenge, it's a very noisy environment, philanthropic environment, giving environment, and so we view the challenges as opportunities to get better at telling our story. Of course, our partner ESPN as a major content engine and a sports, of course, centered organization helps tell our story in significant ways. But additionally, we've taken it upon ourselves to get better at uplifting partnerships we have in and around communities all over the country, where we're in many people's backyards collaborating and funding research, and we want to make sure people are aware of it.
You know, the foundation has made, I think, just a tremendous impact on so many lives. And I'm sure it'd be difficult for you to just choose one, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. Is there a particular moment from your time at the V Foundation, Shane, that really stands out, or a story that has affected you in a meaningful way?
Yeah, it's hard to pick one.
But you have to, you know.
I have to pick one. I would say a story of hope. You mentioned hope earlier, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. We deal in the commodity of hope here with victory over cancer and don't give up. I'd pick young Harper, who lives. She's younger than 10. She lives here in North Carolina. Happens to be in our backyard of where the V Foundation headquarters are at. Harper was diagnosed with cancer, and she decided she wanted to do something about it, and not just herself beat cancer, which she's well on her way, but also bring awareness to the need to fund more research for pediatric cancer research, which Dick Vitale, who is on our board, right, does 24/7, 365, and has done so in big ways. But Harper doesn't have the megaphone that Dick Vitale has, right? But that didn't stop her. She chose to go out in her community and invite her friends and her family and anyone who would listen, that she'd like their support in the same way Jim Valvano asked for people's support, that she would like their support to help fund pediatric cancer research through the V Foundation to the very best pediatric cancer research in the country. And I think that story, among several I could tell, just embodies who we are. She's a fighter, and she's in it through hope. And we're gonna get to a cure because of people like Harper.
Yeah, and it's hard not to be touched by someone like that and a story like that. You know, I'll sort of move towards my last question. So I don't think any of us, including myself, when I left to go to college, I didn't think about becoming president and CEO at that time. I'm sure when you left to go to college, the V Foundation wasn't sort of in your view. Tell me what your 18-year-old self would think about not only the person you are today, but the work that you do today. Looking back at 18-year-old Shane, what would he say?
Boy, I haven't thought that question certainly in some time. I think, my 18-year-old self was getting ready for college, trying to figure out what I was going to do. At Iowa State University, started to ask myself, what could I do with my career? I think my 18-year-old self would celebrate that I do put my head on the pillow every night, and in the small way that I can, try to make a difference. And I think my 18-year-old self was just hoping in some way, shape, or form I could make a positive difference in our communities, in our world, whatever that may be. I think the 18-year-old self would have been surprised by the path that it took to arrive here, especially the type of relational capital that one might need to build if they don't come from a place of relational capital, and the importance of building that. Would be surprised by the benefit of building that relational capital. Dennis, I think the last point I would make would be that my 18-year-old self might echo a little bit of what I've heard that Jim Valvano would probably tell us right now, which is it's great, all the things that you've accomplished. My 18-year-old self would say it to me, Shane. Jim might say it to us, the V Foundation. Celebrate that. Take time to point at the people who have made that possible, the team that makes that possible. Keep doing that. But you're not done yet. You got a lot more work to do. So don't rest on your laurels. Show up, work hard. Yeah. Hard work pays off, and keep doing it.
Well, Shane, I think your 18-year-old self would be proud. I know the work that you do personally, the work that you do professionally, it does make a difference. You know, it takes all of us to make a concerted effort to move the needle on cancer research, on trying to eradicate this from our everyday narrative. We're not there yet. I don't think we're going to give up, and I'm sure you're not going to give up. And I so much appreciate the fact that you've taken some time just to share with me a little bit about the V Foundation story, a little bit about your story. And I know those that view this podcast or listen to this podcast, my hope is that they also will be inspired to do some things to make a difference. So I can't thank you enough for joining us, and I really, really appreciate the work that you do and the V Foundation does.
Thank you, Dennis. On behalf of the V team, thank you. We appreciate the opportunity to tell our story.
Wow, what a great conversation with Shane. I hope that will inspire you to tune in to our next episode. We will yet again have another exciting guest. So thanks for being a part of Here for Good. We'll see you next time.